Hello, gentle listener. Welcome to Pets for Sleep. Whether you have returned tonight or are discovering this quiet corner for the first time, this is a place to slow down, learn something gentle about the animals we love, and let the day gradually soften around you. Tonight, picture an ordinary morning inside a familiar home. A cat is stretched across the foot of a bed, resting in a square of pale window light. Its front paws are folded loosely beneath its chest. Its eyes seem almost closed, yet one ear turns when a drawer slides open across the room. You are getting ready to leave. Perhaps you place a cup beside the sink, change your shirt, gather a bag, and check that your phone is in your pocket. Shoes are pulled from beneath a chair. A coat is lifted from its hook. Keys make a small metallic sound as they are picked up from the table. To you, these may feel like separate and unimportant movements. To a cat that has watched the same routine hundreds of times, they may belong to one familiar pattern. The cat may lift its head. It may follow you into the hallway, sit beside the door, or remain exactly where it is. A quiet response does not mean that nothing was noticed. Cats often show attention through very small movements. An ear may rotate toward a sound, while the rest of the body stays still. The pupils may widen slightly. The head may rise only an inch from the blanket before settling again. These small changes can be easy to miss, especially when a person is thinking about traffic, work, errands, or everything waiting beyond the front door. And yet, from the cat's point of view, the important event has already begun. Your departure starts before you leave. It begins with the repeated sounds, objects, scents, and movements that usually come first. If you enjoy these quiet journeys through the lives of animals, you're welcome to subscribe. And if it feels natural, to leave a comment sharing where you're listening from tonight, or which pet is nearby as you listen. It helps other animal lovers find their way to this calm corner of the world, one sleepy companion at a time. The quiet continues here, just as it is. The cat remains in the hallway, watching as your hand reaches toward the door. Perhaps it has seen this exact sequence every weekday for several years. Maybe the bathroom light turns on shortly after 7. Breakfast is placed in the same bowl. The same dark shoes appear from beneath the bench. A bag is lifted. The keys sound, and the door opens. Animals can learn repeated patterns without understanding them in the same way a person does. The cat does not need to know what an office is, why an appointment matters, or how many kilometers you will travel. It only needs to notice that one group of events regularly leads to another. After the shoes and keys, the person often disappears through the door. That simple connection can shape what the cat does before the departure has even happened. One cat may walk close to your legs. Another may move toward the food bowl, because leaving has often been followed by breakfast. Another may climb onto the warm place you have just left behind. A fourth may remain on the windowsill, looking almost completely unconcerned. There is no single response shared by every cat. Age, routine, personality, past experience, and the layout of the home all help shape what happens. A young cat in a small apartment may follow every movement. An older cat in a quiet house may simply watch from a favorite chair. A cat living with another animal may turn its attention toward that companion. A cat living alone may listen as the sounds of the person become fewer. Then the door closes. The latch clicks into place. Footsteps move down the hall, across the porch, or toward the car. For a few seconds, the cat may look at the entrance. It may sniff the narrow space beneath the door, walk into another room, begin grooming one paw, or return to sleep. What follows is rarely one long period of waiting. The hidden hours may contain window watching, short walks through familiar rooms, small meals, stretches, sudden bursts of play, careful listening, and long periods of rest. The house has not become empty. It has simply changed. The person is gone, but their scent remains on the pillow, the chair, the clothing, and the floor where their shoes passed. Their routine remains in the cat's memory, and somewhere within the ordinary silence, a private day is beginning. The keys make a light metallic sound as they shift in the hand. Before the lock turns, one of the cat's ears may already be facing the doorway. Its body can remain loose against the blanket. Its eyes may stay half closed. A response this small is easy to overlook, yet the sound may carry years of repeated experience. Metal touching metal has no natural connection to a person leaving home. The connection develops because the same sound often appears in the same place within a familiar chain of events. Perhaps the morning begins with water running in the bathroom. A cupboard opens soon afterward, followed by the scrape of a food bowl across the kitchen floor. The person puts on a certain pair of shoes, lifts a dark bag, and switches off the hallway light. Keys sound near the entrance, and a few moments later, the door closes. When this order repeats across weeks and months, the early events begin to predict the later ones. Scientists call this associative learning. It means that the brain connects events that regularly occur close together. A young cat does not arrive in a home knowing that a coat can predict several hours of quiet. The meaning grows through experience. After enough repetitions, the coat becomes useful information. Its appearance can help the cat prepare for what usually follows. The strongest prediction may come from the whole sequence rather than one object. Keys are sometimes moved while cleaning. Shoes can be worn around the house. A bag might be carried from one room to another. When the familiar shoes appear at the usual hour, and the person moves steadily toward the door, those separate clues begin supporting the same expectation. Cats can combine sight, sound, scent, and timing in this way. A workday departure may feel different from a short trip to the mailbox because the steps leading toward it are different. The person's pace may change. The lights may be left in a certain pattern. Even the voice used before leaving can become part of the routine. Research suggests that cats can recognize more in a familiar voice than their quiet reactions seem to show. In 2013, Japanese researchers Atsuko Saito and Kazutaka Shinozuka studied 20 domestic cats. Each cat remained in a familiar setting, while recorded voices called its name. 3 unfamiliar people spoke first. The voices were played one after another until the cat's response began to fade. This fading is called habituation. It happens when a repeated sound stops being new enough to deserve the same level of attention. After the unfamiliar voices, the recording changed to the cat's owner. The owner stayed out of sight, so the cat had only the sound of the voice to work with. Many of the cats showed renewed attention when the familiar person spoke. They often did this through a turn of the ears, a small movement of the head, or a change in the pupils. Most did not walk toward the speaker. They did not need a large outward reaction to show that the sound had been noticed and separated from the voices that came before it. That finding helps explain the cat resting near the doorway now. It may hear the keys and remain in place. Recognition can happen while the paws stay folded beneath the chest. The cat may identify the coat, notice the bag, and register the movement toward the entrance without following. Inside the brain, those signals can still alter what the cat expects from the next few minutes. One animal may move toward a favorite sleeping place because the house is about to become quiet. Another may approach the kitchen, having learned that food sometimes appears before departure. A cat with outdoor access might wait near a different door. The visible choices vary, while the learning process beneath them follows the same basic rule. Events that repeatedly arrive in a predictable order become connected. This ability is useful far beyond the morning goodbye. The sound of a cupboard may predict food. A carrier placed on the floor may predict a journey. The click of a lamp at night can signal that the household is settling down. These links allow the cat to live within a human routine whose purpose it cannot fully understand. The sequence reaches its final movement. A hand presses the handle. The door opens. Cool air enters the hallway, and familiar footsteps pass through the frame. Prediction has carried the cat to the edge of the absence. It cannot reveal whether the person will return in 5 minutes or several hours. The latch closes, and the part of the day hidden from human eyes begins. For a moment, the entrance holds the last trace of movement. Footsteps soften beyond the door. A car may start outside, or an elevator may carry the sound away through the building. The cat remains beside the hallway, surrounded by rooms that look the same but suddenly feel different. Some cats watch the door for several seconds. Others turn away almost at once. A nose may lower toward the narrow gap near the floor, where outside air slips in carrying dust, pavement, damp grass, or the fading scent of the person who just left. One cat may walk through the kitchen and pause beside the food bowl. Another may lift a paw and begin washing its face. A quiet call can travel down the hallway, followed by silence. The cat that never moved may simply lower its head back onto the blanket. These responses can look very different, even when they belong to the same gentle adjustment. The person has left. The familiar cues reach their usual result, and the cat begins responding to the home as it is now. Researchers in Sweden tried to observe this private period directly in 2017. They studied 14 cats living in ordinary homes with their owners. 9 were female and 5 were male. The youngest was about 7 months old, while the oldest was 15 years old. Most lived mainly indoors, which allowed cameras to follow much of their movement through familiar rooms. Each cat experienced 2 separate absences on consecutive days. On one day, the owner left for 30 minutes. On the other, the owner remained away for 4 hours. Half of the cats experienced the shorter absence first. The others experienced the longer one first. Balancing the order helped reduce the chance that the first day alone would change the results of the second. 3 cameras were placed around the home. 1 watched the entrance. 2 more covered places where the owner believed the cat spent much of its time. Recording began 5 minutes before the owner left. It continued throughout the absence and for 5 minutes after the owner returned. This design gave the researchers a view of the full transition. They could see the cat while the person was still present, the moment of departure, the hidden period, and the beginning of the reunion. The first 5 minutes produced a useful result. The cats did not behave in a clearly different way at the beginning of the 30-minute absence and the 4-hour absence. Their early movements did not reveal how long the owner would eventually remain gone. A cat that looked toward the door after the short departure might do the same after the long one. Walking into another room could happen in either condition. So could grooming, resting, or remaining outside the camera's view. The cat had no reliable signal at the moment of departure, telling it whether the silence would last half an hour or most of an afternoon. Its immediate behavior reflected the change that had already happened. The owner was no longer present. The future length of that absence had not yet become available through experience. This result also helps keep the hidden day in proportion. A quiet response does not mean the departure went unnoticed. The cat had already heard the learned signals, watched the person move toward the exit, and experienced the closing of the door. Its first actions simply did not form a dramatic display. Many adjustments in animal behavior are brief and practical. The cat may check one location, listen for movement, then choose a place to settle. A short walk through the hallway can be enough to confirm that the person is no longer in the nearby rooms. One sniff near the door may gather information from the air. A return to the bed may follow because the home has entered its quieter period. The first 5 minutes, therefore, offer no single scene shared by every cat. They reveal a range of small choices shaped by age, routine, temperament, and surroundings. A 7-month-old cat may explore more quickly. A 15-year-old may conserve movement and remain in a warm resting place. The same absence can begin with motion in one home and stillness in another. Soon, the last outside sounds become harder to separate. The entrance no longer provides new information. With the person out of sight, the cat begins listening to everything that remains inside the walls. The first few minutes settle into a different kind of quiet. Drawers no longer slide open. Water stops running through the bathroom pipes. Footsteps disappear from the hallway, and the soft scrape of a chair against the floor is gone. A home without its usual human movement can seem almost silent. To a cat, the smaller sounds now have more space. The refrigerator motor hums from the kitchen. Warm air moves through a heating duct. Water passes behind a wall when someone in a nearby apartment turns on a tap. Farther away, a delivery van slows near the curb. A bird lands on a gutter and shifts its feet across the metal. Each sound arrives from a certain direction and carries a different pattern. Some are low and steady. Others begin suddenly, then fade. The cat can sort much of this information while resting in one place. Its outer ears, called pinnae, can rotate toward a sound source. Small muscles at the base of each ear allow one ear to turn without forcing the whole head to follow. A cat stretched across a sofa may aim its right ear toward the window, while the left stays angled toward the hallway. The body remains loose. Only the ears reveal that the room is being monitored. 2 ears also help the brain work out where a sound began. A noise coming from the left reaches the left ear a tiny fraction of a second before it reaches the right. Its loudness may also differ slightly between the two sides. The brain compares those differences and builds an estimate of direction. When the sound is faint or confusing, the cat may lift its head and turn both ears toward it. That movement gives the brain a cleaner sample. A human voice, a cupboard door, and a bird against the glass each form a different sound pattern. The cat does not need to inspect every one of them. Familiar background sounds can be allowed to continue. A new sound may earn a brief ear turn. A noise linked to food, another animal, or a person may produce a larger response. Louder activity can hide quieter sounds through a process called masking. Masking happens when one sound makes another harder to hear. While a person is home, speech, footsteps, music, dishes, and running water overlap with many faint noises around the building. After departure, those stronger sounds disappear. The click of a neighboring door may become clearer. An elevator stopping on the floor can stand out. A branch brushing the window may suddenly seem close enough to inspect. The cat's hearing helps turn the quiet home into a field of separate events. Research on familiar voices shows how much information one sound can contain. In a 2013 study, 20 domestic cats heard recordings of unfamiliar people calling their names. After those voices had been repeated, the recording changed to the cat's owner. The owner remained out of sight. Many cats responded again when the familiar voice appeared. Their reactions were often small. An ear turned. The head shifted. The pupils changed. Only a few animals moved toward the speaker. The cats had still separated the familiar person's voice from the unfamiliar voices that came before it. Sound carried identity across a room, even when no body was visible. That ability remains useful after the front door closes. A voice in the corridor can be compared with voices heard many times before. Footsteps may have their own rhythm. The engine of a familiar car may differ from the heavier sound of a truck. The cat cannot identify every source perfectly, yet repeated experience gives some sounds special value. Careful listening also belongs to ordinary calm behavior. An ear turning toward the wall does not automatically signal fear. The cat may simply be checking a brief change in the environment. Once the sound is recognized as harmless, the ear relaxes or turns toward something else. This quiet sampling can continue for long periods. The refrigerator begins another cycle. A bird calls from a tree beyond the glass. Somewhere in the building, a key enters a different lock. The home contains fewer human sounds now, though it remains full of information. Within that changing soundscape, the cat can recognize movement, distance, and sometimes the identity of someone who cannot yet be seen. A familiar person can therefore remain part of the cat's world, even after disappearing beyond every doorway. The hallway is quiet now, and the nearest doorway stands empty. The cat looks toward the room where its owner often appears. Nothing moves there. No familiar voice crosses the space. Still, the cat's attention may remain fixed on the opening for several seconds before turning elsewhere. Animals can keep track of people and objects that are temporarily hidden. Scientists call this ability object permanence. In simple terms, it means understanding that something continues to exist after it disappears from view. A toy rolling beneath a sofa has not stopped existing simply because the fabric blocks it. A person walking behind a door has not dissolved into the wall. Young human babies develop stronger forms of this understanding gradually. Other mammals, and many birds, also show versions of it, although the details differ from species to species. For a cat, hidden objects matter during hunting. A mouse can slip beneath a cabinet. An insect may vanish behind a curtain. The cat can wait near the last known location because its brain continues representing something it can no longer see. A familiar person can also remain connected to a place after leaving the cat's direct view. Researchers explored this ability in Japan in a study published in 2021. Domestic cats heard sounds from speakers placed in different parts of a room. Some recordings contained the owner's voice. Others used an unfamiliar person, a cat's call, or ordinary non-living sounds. The researchers first played a voice from one position. Soon afterward, another sound came from a second position several feet away. The most striking reaction appeared when the owner's voice seemed to move suddenly between the two locations. Some cats turned their heads sharply. Their ears shifted, and their bodies briefly became more alert. The unseen owner appeared to cross the room in a way that did not match normal movement. Researchers described the process as sociospatial cognition. Sociospatial means combining information about a social individual with information about physical location. The cat was hearing a particular person and placing that person somewhere in space. When the same voice appeared somewhere unexpected, the cat seemed to notice the broken pattern. The strongest surprise did not appear in the same way when ordinary sounds changed position. Cat vocalizations also produced a different response. The owner's voice carried a special link between identity and location. This supports the idea that a cat can form an internal representation of a person who remains unseen. That representation is likely simple and practical. It may contain the person's familiar voice, their last known position, and the places where they usually appear. The experiment does not show that a cat imagines the owner driving to work or walking through a supermarket. It also does not show that the cat plans the owner's return several hours ahead. The evidence points toward a basic spatial understanding of an individual who exists beyond the visible room. Researchers are still testing how far feline hidden object reasoning can go. A home-based study published in 2025 worked with 18 domestic cats. The cats completed tasks linked to two levels of object permanence, known as Stage 4 and Stage 6. Stage 4 involves following an object that becomes hidden in one clear place. For example, a toy may be covered beneath a small cloth while the cat watches. Stage 6 is more demanding. It tests whether the animal can follow an object through a series of hidden movements and infer where it finally ended up. These labels come from a system originally designed to describe stages of cognitive development. Testing cats inside their own homes helped reduce the disruption caused by unfamiliar laboratories. The results added to a growing picture of feline reasoning, while also showing how difficult these abilities are to measure. Motivation can change from 1 minute to the next. A cat may understand where a toy went and simply decide that retrieving it is not worth the effort. Another cat may become distracted by a sound at the window. A failed search, therefore, does not always reveal the limit of understanding. Back in the quiet house, the owner remains beyond the cat's sight and hearing. The cat may no longer stare at the doorway. Its body may settle near the bed or move toward a chair. The person still has a place within the cat's learned map of the home. Physical traces now support that hidden presence. Skin oils remain on a pillowcase. A worn shirt carries a familiar odor. The sofa holds molecules left behind through hours of contact. As the cat passes these surfaces, the absent person returns through the sense that often lingers longest after departure: scent. A pillow near the head of the bed still holds traces of skin, hair, and breath. The sleeve of a worn shirt carries a mixture of laundry soap, body oils, and the faint odors collected during the day. A sofa cushion contains the chemical history of repeated contact. Shoes near the entrance hold another blend, shaped by pavement, soil, indoor dust, and the person who wore them. These traces are physical. They are made from tiny molecules released into the air from skin, fabric, wood, food, and countless other surfaces. Molecules that can travel through air are called volatile molecules. Volatile simply means that they can leave a surface and float through the space around it. When the cat breathes in near a pillow or shirt, some of these molecules enter the nasal passages. They reach a moist layer of tissue lined with sensory cells. Those cells carry proteins called receptors. Different receptors respond to different chemical shapes, creating a pattern of signals that travels into the brain. The cat experiences that pattern as odor. A familiar human smell is never made from one single substance. It contains hundreds of chemical parts influenced by skin bacteria, diet, soap, clothing, the surrounding home, and the objects touched throughout the day. Repeated exposure allows the cat's nervous system to build a history with that complicated mixture. An unfamiliar person brings a different pattern. Researchers tested this ability in a study published in 2025. They worked with 30 domestic cats living with people. 11 were male and 19 were female. Their average age was just under 7 years. Each cat was presented with 3 tubes at the same time. One held a sample carrying the odor of the cat's owner. A second carried odor from an unfamiliar person of the same sex as the owner. The third was a blank control, included so the researchers could measure interest in a tube without a human scent. The cats could approach, sniff, turn away, and return according to their own interest. Across the experiment, they spent longer investigating the unfamiliar person's odor than the odor of their owner. That difference shows that the cats could separate a known human scent from an unknown one. The longer sniffing also fits a common pattern in animal behavior. New information often requires more examination. A familiar odor already matches something stored through repeated experience, so the brain may process it with less investigation. This principle appears in many parts of a cat's day. A new cardboard box may receive several minutes of close sniffing. A chair that has stood in the same place for years may need only a brief check. Someone visiting for the first time may leave a coat that attracts careful attention long after the guest has sat down. The owner's smell belongs to the established sensory background of the home. That familiarity does not reveal everything the cat understands. The study showed a clear difference between known and unknown human odor. It did not determine whether the cat forms a human-style idea of identity from scent alone. The experiment also could not show whether a cat lies on a worn shirt specifically to feel comforted. Warmth, softness, location, and habit can all influence the choice of a resting place. Scent may join those other features without being the only cause. The researchers noticed another interesting behavior after some of the cats inspected the tubes. Several rubbed the side of the face against them. Cats have scent-producing glands around parts of the face, including the cheeks and chin. Face rubbing can leave some of the cat's own chemical material behind. The researchers suggested that investigation may sometimes be followed by marking, although the experiment was not designed to prove one fixed purpose for every rub. Inside the quiet home, familiar human odor remains spread across many locations. It clings to bedding after the person rises. It stays on the chair, where an evening was spent reading or watching television. Small traces remain on door handles, rugs, blankets, and the edge of the sofa. Air currents slowly move some molecules away. Cleaning removes others. Fresh contact renews them when the person returns. For now, the cat passes through a home carrying a recent chemical record of ordinary life. The person is physically distant, while familiar scent remains close enough to breathe in. Those human traces overlap with another layer that has been built through months of rubbing, scratching, sleeping, and walking. The cat has been adding its own scent to the same rooms all along. From the clothing, the cat moves toward the doorway. Its cheek brushes the edge of the frame. A few steps later, the side of its body passes along the leg of a chair. The tail may curve lightly around the corner as the cat continues into the hall. These brief contacts can leave behind small amounts of chemical information. Cats have scent-producing glands around parts of the face, especially near the cheeks and chin. Other scent glands are found around the body, including near the base of the tail and between the toes. When a cat presses its face or flank against an object, some of its odor can transfer to the surface. The amount is tiny, and a human nose may never notice it. For the cat, the object becomes part of a familiar chemical pattern. Rubbing also appears in feline greetings. Cats that know each other may touch heads, pass their bodies alongside one another, or lift their tails as they approach. A cat may use similar movements with a familiar person. These contacts can mix odors while also providing touch and information about the other individual. The exact purpose can change with the situation. A cheek against a table corner may refresh a familiar scent. A body rub against a returning person may form part of a social greeting. The visible action looks simple, while several processes can happen at once. In the 2025 experiment involving human odor, researchers saw face rubbing after some cats had finished sniffing the scent tubes. That pattern suggested a possible sequence. The cat first investigated the unfamiliar or familiar smell, then added contact of its own. The study did not prove that every rub serves the same purpose, though it showed how smelling and marking may occur close together. A little farther along the room, the cat reaches a scratching post. The front paws rise, and the back lengthens as the body stretches upward. Each forepaw presses into the surface before pulling down. Scratching helps remove worn outer layers from the claws. A cat's claw grows in layers, and the older outer covering can loosen as a new surface forms beneath it. The The movement also stretches muscles through the shoulders, back, and front legs. Visible lines remain on cardboard, rope, wood, or fabric. Odor from glands in the paws may add another signal to the same location. This makes scratching both a body care behavior and a form of communication through the environment. A worn post can hold repeated layers of claw marks, fur, skin oils, and scent. Its position also matters. The cat remembers where the surface stands in relation to the doorway, food area, window, or resting place. The home becomes familiar through several senses working together. Texture tells the paws what kind of surface has been reached. Odor helps separate known objects from newly introduced ones. Spatial memory connects each object to its usual location. That combined map can change. A chair moved across the room creates a new path. Freshly washed bedding carries less of the older scent pattern. A visitor's coat introduces unfamiliar odor near the entrance. Cardboard from a delivered parcel may bring traces from a warehouse, truck, pavement, and another building. The cat may spend longer sniffing these altered places because the information no longer matches the established pattern. Scent marks also weaken over time. Airflow carries away some volatile molecules. Sunlight and heat can change chemical compounds. Cleaning removes traces from fabric and hard surfaces. Repeated contact restores them. The map is therefore renewed through ordinary movement, rather than created once and left unchanged. This helps explain why a cat may follow a familiar route through the house after the owner leaves. The path can include checking a doorway, rubbing against a corner, pausing near a sound, and choosing a resting place. Calling every circuit a patrol would make the behavior seem more fixed than it is. The same walk may serve several small purposes. The cat gathers information while moving through space. It leaves traces where its body touches familiar objects. It may also be heading toward warmth, a window, or a place where it often sleeps. In the Swedish separation study, researchers recorded rubbing as a behavior separate from purring. Rubbing did not increase after the 4-hour absence in the same way that purring did when the owner returned. This distinction matters because two familiar-looking social behaviors can respond differently to the same event. The cat's quiet passage through the rooms belongs to a larger system of scent, memory, touch, and habit. The furniture may be modern, yet the body moving around it carries patterns shaped long before homes contained sofas, scratching posts, or front doors. The cat pauses where the hallway turns. Its body becomes still, while its ears point toward a faint sound beneath a cabinet. A paw reaches into the narrow gap, feeling along the floor where dust, a lost toy, or a small insect may be hidden. This movement belongs to a body shaped for close watching and sudden action. Domestic cats are small ambush predators. They often approach slowly, wait without moving, and finish a hunt with a short burst of speed. Those same patterns can appear inside a modern home. A doorway becomes a place to watch from cover. The space beneath furniture resembles a small shelter, where prey might disappear. A quiet sound behind a wall can hold attention for several minutes. The domestic cat carries these instincts from an ancestral wildcat that lived across northern Africa and parts of the Near East. Scientists commonly call this lineage Felis sylvestris libica. It is a slim, sandy-colored wildcat with striped legs, a long tail, and a body that looks surprisingly similar to many cats living in homes today. The relationship between these wildcats and people began thousands of years before modern cat breeds existed. During the Neolithic period, farming communities began storing larger amounts of grain. Neolithic means the later part of the Stone Age, when agriculture and permanent settlements spread through many regions. In parts of the Near East, this change was already underway around 10,000 years ago. Stored grain attracted mice and other rodents. Rodents could feed inside storage buildings, reproduce quickly, and damage supplies that people needed through dry seasons or winter. Wildcats found an unusually rich hunting ground around these settlements. A cat willing to approach human buildings gained access to concentrated prey. People benefited because the cats reduced the number of animals feeding on stored food. This type of relationship is called commensal domestication. Commensal means that one species begins living near another, because the arrangement provides an advantage. The earliest cats may have moved closer to people, largely through their own hunting choices. Over many generations, individuals that tolerated human activity had better access to rodents around homes and grain stores. Humans likely allowed useful cats to remain nearby. This created a long path toward domestic life without requiring people to control every mating pair or train cats for a specific task. Ancient DNA has helped researchers trace parts of that path. In 2017, scientists examined genetic material from archaeological cat remains found across Europe, Africa, and Western Asia. The evidence showed that cats connected to Near Eastern wildcat populations began spreading with early farming communities during the Neolithic period. They traveled across land as people carried crops, livestock, tools, and stored food into new regions. A second major expansion involved cats related to populations from Egypt. During the classical period, roughly covering the centuries of ancient Greek and Roman power, Egyptian-associated cats spread through much of the Old World. Trade routes carried people and goods across roads, rivers, and the Mediterranean Sea. Ships stored grain and other food that could attract rodents. Cats became useful passengers because they hunted the animals living among ropes, wooden crates, and cargo. A cat stepping from a ship into a port town could enter a new population far from the place where its ancestors had lived. This movement helped domestic cats spread across large parts of Europe and beyond. Their value remained practical for much of this history. Cats guarded grain stores, farms, ships, workshops, and homes from small animals that consumed food or damaged materials. Appearance mattered less than hunting ability and tolerance of nearby people. One genetic clue shows how late stronger selection for coat patterns arrived. The blotched tabby pattern creates broad swirls and thick markings along the sides of the body. The gene version connected with this coat became common mainly after the Middle Ages. That was thousands of years after cats had already begun living near farming settlements. Modern breed development came later still, especially during the 19th century, when organized cat shows and written breed standards became popular in Europe. The modern cat therefore carries an unusual combination. Its body remains close to that of a small wild hunter. Its daily life has also been shaped by a very long relationship with human settlements. That history helps explain how a cat can form close social bonds while still spending hours moving independently through familiar space. The hallway circuit, the pause near a gap, and the patient watch beside a doorway all echo an older landscape. Today, the grain store may be gone, and the hunting route may end at a sofa. Beyond the nearest pane of glass, however, birds, insects, leaves, and passing animals continue to move. A sparrow lands on the fence beyond the glass. The cat lowers onto the windowsill, front paws tucked close together, while its head follows the bird's short movements. Nothing else in the room changes. The body can remain nearly motionless for several minutes, while attention stays fixed on one moving point outside. For a small hunting animal, stillness is often part of the work. A chase usually begins long before the first step. The cat watches distance, direction, speed, and the places where a target might disappear. Its eyes shift as the sparrow hops along the fence. One ear angles toward the bird's calls. The other briefly turns toward a car passing on the street. When the bird moves closer, the whiskers may point slightly forward and the cat's shoulders may sink lower. Several senses are gathering information at the same time. The eyes follow motion. The ears locate small sounds. The nose receives whatever scent the air carries through a screen or open window. Glass blocks the path, yet it does not prevent the cat's hunting system from becoming active. Predatory behavior is made from several smaller parts. A cat may notice a target, turn toward it, approach slowly, crouch, chase, grasp, and bite. The full sequence does not always appear. At a closed window, watching may continue while every later step remains impossible. The brain can still prepare the body. Muscles become ready for movement. The head tracks each change in direction. Attention narrows around the target. Classic experiments on feline hunting found that hunger influenced how likely a cat was to kill prey, though hunting interest could appear even when the cat had eaten. A well-fed cat might still stalk a mouse or reach toward an insect. Food needs shape the strength of the response, while movement itself can attract attention. The size and difficulty of prey also changed what cats did. Smaller or easier prey was more likely to be caught and killed. Larger, unfamiliar, or harder to control prey could lead to longer handling or behavior that looked more like play. This helps explain why a house cat may spend several minutes following a tiny fly while ignoring a larger bird farther away. Distance changes what can be attempted. Speed affects how long the movement remains predictable. A target partly hidden by leaves may hold attention because it appears, vanishes, and appears again. The view through a window offers many kinds of activity. A pigeon walking along a roof can activate prey interest. Another cat crossing a garden may become part of territorial monitoring. A person carrying groceries may simply provide novelty. Passing dogs, blowing leaves, bicycles, and shadows can each hold attention for a different length of time. The same posture may serve several purposes. A low crouch can appear during hunting interest. A seated cat with relaxed paws may be calmly observing the neighborhood. A stiff body and flattened ears suggest a different state from quiet watching. One tail movement cannot provide a complete answer by itself. A twitching tip may accompany focused attention. A faster sweep can appear with rising arousal. Some cats make a rapid chattering sound when watching birds. The sound is often linked with predatory excitement, though its exact purpose remains uncertain. It should not be treated as a direct sentence translated from the cat's thoughts. The whole pattern matters more than one signal. Ear position, muscle tension, pupils, whiskers, breathing, and the target outside all provide context. During an ordinary afternoon alone, the window can become the most changeable part of the home. Furniture stays where it was placed. The bowl remains in the kitchen. The view beyond the glass keeps moving. Clouds change the light. Birds enter and leave. People pass through the cat's field of view without ever entering the room. For an indoor cat, this boundary may provide some of the day's richest sensory information. The animal can watch safely from a familiar surface while events unfold beyond reach. The sparrow suddenly lifts from the fence. Its wings carry it above the roofline, and the cat's head rises with the movement. For a moment, the eyes remain fixed on the empty patch of sky where the bird disappeared. The hunting sequence has been started and left unfinished. Attention then shifts back into the room, where smaller objects remain close enough for a paw to touch. A loose paper ball rests beneath the edge of a chair. The cat notices it while turning away from the window. One paw reaches forward and taps the paper. It rolls several inches, catches against a table leg, and becomes still again. That tiny movement can be enough to begin a new hunting sequence. The cat turns its head toward the object and fixes its eyes on the place where it stopped. Its body lowers closer to the floor. Weight shifts slowly through the paws as the cat moves forward. A brief chase begins when the paper rolls again. The front feet leave the ground in a short pounce. Claws or paws close around the object, followed by a quick bite. These actions come from the same broad system used when cats hunt living prey. A complete predatory sequence often begins with noticing and orienting toward a target. Watching may lead into stalking, followed by a chase. The sequence can finish with capture, holding, and biting. Play often uses only some of these parts. A cat may watch a toy for a long time and never approach it. Another may bat a ball repeatedly without chasing. Some cats pounce on the same object several times, even though it never behaves like prey and cannot be eaten. The nervous system can activate each hunting component in changing combinations. This is one reason feline play can seem unpredictable from moment to moment. The cat does not need to be very hungry before a moving object becomes interesting. Classic experiments found that hunger increased the chance that a cat would kill captured prey. Predatory attention and pursuit could still appear after the cat had eaten. Movement, size, texture, and the difficulty of controlling an object all help shape the response. A small item sliding beneath furniture can hold attention because it partly disappears from view. A toy that changes direction after hitting a wall creates fresh information. Something perfectly motionless in the same position for several weeks may blend into the background. Realistic appearance matters less than many people expect. A plain bottle cap can become more interesting than a carefully shaped toy mouse when it spins across a smooth floor. Crumpled paper makes irregular sounds and changes direction easily. A cardboard tube can roll, stop, and begin moving again after a light touch. Novelty often adds interest because the cat has not yet learned exactly how the object behaves. Young cats commonly spend more time in this kind of predatory play. Their growing bodies are practicing balance, timing, and control of the paws. Adult cats continue to play, though the amount varies widely. One mature cat may chase objects every afternoon. Another may engage only when something moves in a very particular way. Age influences the pattern, while health, temperament, past experience, and the home environment also matter. The person's absence changes which kinds of play remain available. A wand toy depends on a hand to make it dart, pause, and hide. Once the owner leaves, the fabric or feathers hang quietly in place. Rolling toys can continue moving after a single touch. A suspended object may swing back toward the cat. Food puzzles respond when pushed or turned, sometimes releasing a small piece of food. Objects partly tucked under a rug can shift in surprising ways when a paw reaches beneath the edge. This does not mean the cat spends the entire day entertaining itself. Home camera recordings usually show activity in short bursts. Several seconds of chasing may be followed by a long pause. A minute of batting can end as suddenly as it began. The cat may stop because the object has become predictable. Another sound has taken priority, or the brief surge of movement has run its course. The paper ball now rests against the wall. The cat gives it one final tap and watches it move only a little. Interest fades. The body rises from its low hunting posture, and the cat walks toward the kitchen. Across repeated days, these bursts begin to gather around familiar parts of the schedule. Changes in daylight, the timing of meals, and the usual sounds of the household can all influence when the cat becomes active. The paper ball remains against the wall as the cat walks into the kitchen. It pauses near the bowl, then settles on a patch of floor where afternoon light often reaches. The room looks still, yet several kinds of timing are working together. A cat does not need to understand the meaning of 3:30 on a clock. Its body can still learn that certain events tend to happen around the same part of each day. Light enters the room at a familiar angle. Hunger gradually increases. Traffic outside changes as people begin returning home. A heating system may switch on at a regular hour. When these signals repeat together, they create a rough sense of when something is likely to happen. Part of this timing comes from an internal biological clock. Scientists call the daily version a circadian rhythm. The word circadian means a cycle lasting close to 24 hours. This rhythm helps organize sleep, activity, body temperature, and other processes. Light is one of the strongest signals used to keep the cycle aligned with the outside world. Food schedules and regular household activity can also shift when a cat becomes alert. Researchers measured these patterns closely in a study published in 2019. 14 indoor colony cats were monitored continuously for 1 full week. Each cat wore a small tag that worked with an ultra-wideband tracking system. Ultra-wideband uses brief radio signals to estimate position with high accuracy. Receivers around the cat's living space recorded 3-dimensional locations every 0.9 seconds. The system could usually place a cat within about 15 centimeters. That distance is roughly the length of a small ruler. Electronic feeders were also used. Each cat carried an identification chip that allowed the system to record which animal approached the food. Electronic scales measured body weight during feeding visits. Together, these tools created a detailed record of movement and eating across the entire week. All 14 cats showed a movement rhythm close to 24 hours. Their activity rose and fell in a repeated daily pattern. 12 of the 14 also showed a strong tendency toward two main peaks. One period of greater movement appeared in the morning. Another arrived during the late afternoon or evening. Lower activity commonly appeared around midday and during part of the night. This pattern is called bimodal activity. Bimodal means that the daily cycle contains two noticeable high points. The exact timing varied among individual cats. One animal might become active earlier than another. The general rise and fall still followed a daily structure. These patterns came from more than the internal clock alone. Morning light changed the room. Staff arrived to care for the colony. Food was refreshed. Later in the day, another set of sounds and routines appeared. The cats' bodies were working with events around them. A pet living in a house can build a similar schedule from different signals. A school bus may pass at the same time each weekday. A neighbor may open a garage door during the late afternoon. The sun may leave one window and reach another resting place. An automatic feeder might release food at a fixed hour. Repeated owner routines can join this system. A cat may become more active near the usual homecoming time because several familiar cues are gathering at once. The light resembles yesterday's light. The building begins to sound the way it often sounds before the door opens. The body has also spent many hours moving through its normal daily rhythm. This does not show that the cat has counted the exact number of minutes since the owner left. The cat also does not need to understand where the person went. Anticipation can grow from probability. When a group of signals has often been followed by the same event, the brain begins preparing for that event again. The result may be a walk toward the hallway. Another cat may visit the window or leave a sleeping place. Some remain still until a direct sound appears outside the door. Individual habits shape how the timing becomes visible. The home alone day, therefore, has a structure, even when much of it looks quiet. Short play episodes, grooming, meals, and rest tend to gather around repeating biological and household conditions. Among all these daily landmarks, food is especially easy to measure. A bowl, feeder, or cupboard can become one of the clearest points around which the cat's private schedule is built. The cat lowers its nose toward the bowl and pauses. A few pieces of dry food remain near the edge. It takes several small bites, lifts its head, then returns for another mouthful. Many cats eat this way. Instead of finishing one large meal, they may visit the bowl several times across the day. The pattern depends greatly on how food is offered. Some homes keep dry food available for long periods. This is often called free access feeding. A cat living with that arrangement can approach whenever hunger rises enough to make eating worthwhile. The visits may be brief and spread across morning, afternoon, and night. Scheduled feeding creates a different rhythm. Food appears at set times, perhaps once in the morning and again during the evening. The sounds that come before the meal can become powerful signals. A cupboard opens. A container lid turns. A spoon touches the side of a dish. After many repetitions, the cat may walk toward the feeding area before the food itself appears. Automatic feeders change the sequence again. A timer releases a measured portion without requiring a person to enter the room. The motor, click, or turning tray becomes the immediate signal. This can separate the arrival of food from the return of the owner. Researchers saw how strongly feeding can organize daily behavior in the 2019 tracking study of 14 indoor colony cats. Electronic feeders recorded which cat approached and how much food was taken. Across the week, the cats ate an average of about 8 measured meals each day. The mean meal contained 5.9 grams of dry food, with normal variation of about 0.7 grams. Their average daily intake was 46.4 grams, with variation of roughly 3.6 grams. 46 grams is only a small handful of dry pieces, yet it was divided across many visits. Feeding activity rose broadly during the morning and again toward evening. Those peaks matched parts of the cat's wider movement rhythm. Hunger was interacting with light, staff routines, and the repeated schedule of the colony. Inside a private home, the bowl can become an equally strong landmark. A cat may wake from a midday rest and eat a few pieces. It may drink afterward, especially if the water bowl is nearby. Another cat may sit beside an unopened feeder several minutes before its usual release time. The body's internal rhythm and the memory of past meals can prepare the animal before food arrives. This matters when people interpret what happens at reunion. A cat that approaches the front door may be seeking contact with the returning person. The same approach could also be connected with dinner, access to another room, or a routine that usually begins when the owner comes home. Several motives can guide one movement. Researchers must separate those possibilities before drawing conclusions about attachment. The Swedish separation experiment handled this issue carefully. 12 of the 14 cats had free access to dry food during the study. That reduced the chance that every reunion response came from a cat waiting for its only meal. A few cats still had feeding routines that could have complicated the result. The researchers repeated part of the analysis after excluding those animals. This left a smaller group of 11 cats. The increased purring after the 4-hour absence remained in that reduced group. That detail becomes important later, because it suggests the change at reunion cannot be explained entirely by hunger. Food and social contact can still overlap. The owner may fill a bowl while speaking to the cat. A greeting may happen beside the kitchen cupboard. The cat can respond to the person and anticipate the meal during the same minute. Careful observation looks at the full pattern rather than assigning one simple meaning to the approach. For now, the cat finishes its small meal. Its tongue passes over the lips. A front paw rises toward the face and receives several quick licks. The paw then moves across the cheek, beginning one of the most ordered body care routines in the hidden day. The damp paw passes slowly over one side of the face. Several licks prepare it again before it brushes across the whisker pads and ear. Food scent, loose particles, and moisture are worked away through a routine the cat has performed since kittenhood. The tongue then moves directly over the chest. Its surface feels rough because it carries hundreds of tiny backward-facing structures made from keratin, the same tough material found in claws and human fingernails. These small structures grip loose fur and help guide saliva through the coat. The cat turns toward one shoulder and begins a series of measured strokes. A front leg stretches forward to expose the fur beneath it. The body bends, allowing the tongue to reach the side and then the upper part of a hind leg. Balance shifts through the remaining paws without disturbing the steady rhythm. Grooming can appear casual, though research shows that it follows organized patterns. In a study published in 2000, scientists videotaped 11 cats between 1 and 6 years old. They measured how the animals divided their time and how grooming moved from one body area to another. Sleeping and resting occupied about half of the observation period. Oral grooming, meaning cleaning with the mouth and tongue, occupied roughly 4% of the cat's total time. When resting periods were removed from the calculation, grooming accounted for about 8% of their active time. That is a noticeable share of the waking day. The recordings also showed that grooming usually spread across the body, rather than remaining fixed on one patch. 91% of oral grooming bouts involved more than one region. The order varied, but there was a moderate movement from the front of the body toward the rear. A session might begin near the face, continue across the chest, then travel along the side toward the hindquarters and tail. The sequence was flexible enough to change with posture, yet structured enough to produce a clear pattern across many recordings. Scratching formed a much smaller part of coat care. The hind foot may rise toward the neck or ear and make several quick contacts. Across the study, this scratch grooming took only about 1/50th as much time as grooming with the tongue. Both behaviors still appeared to be regulated by the body. They did not occur only when a piece of dirt was visible. Researchers tested that regulation by fitting the cats with protective collars for 3 days. The collars temporarily prevented normal oral grooming. Once the collars were removed, the cats increased licking by 67% during the first 12 hours. Scratch grooming increased by about 200% during the same early recovery period. This rebound suggests that grooming pressure can build when the behavior is blocked. The body appears to track a need for coat care and then make up part of the missed activity when normal movement returns. Rest also influenced timing. Longer periods of resting were linked with a shorter delay before the next grooming bout. A cat waking from sleep may stretch, sit upright, and begin washing within a few moments. The pattern joins several practical tasks. Loose hairs are collected before they fall elsewhere. Small particles are removed from the coat. Saliva spreads over the fur, while the tongue helps separate hairs that have pressed together during rest. Grooming can also restore a familiar scent after contact with food, bedding, another animal, or a person's hands. Repeated licking should still be read in context. Ordinary grooming moves among body regions and eventually ends. Persistent attention to one spot, damaged fur, or irritated skin belongs to a different situation. During a normal afternoon alone, the sequence often remains quiet and balanced. The cat reaches the lower abdomen, lifts one hind leg, then turns toward the tail. Each stroke becomes slower than the one before it. The leg returns to the floor. A final lick passes over the shoulder as the cat shifts its weight toward a nearby cushion. Muscles that held the body upright begin to relax. The coat has been worked over, the meal is finished, and movement gradually gives way to the long stillness that fills so much of a cat's private day. The cat steps onto the cushion and turns once, before lowering its body. Its front paws fold beneath the chest. The tail settles along one side, and the eyes narrow as the muscles around the shoulders begin to loosen. This resting place may have been chosen for several practical reasons. A high shelf gives the cat a clear view of the room, while keeping the body away from floor-level movement. A bed or worn chair carries familiar odors from the household. An enclosed box reduces the number of directions from which something can approach. Temperature also shapes where stillness happens. Sunlight passing through glass can warm a windowsill far above the temperature of the surrounding room. During warmer weather, tile or wood may draw heat away from the body more quickly than thick fabric. A cat may move between these places during the day as the sun shifts and the rooms change temperature. The location can look like a simple preference, yet it combines warmth, visibility, texture, and familiarity. Once the cat settles, very little may appear to happen. This stillness occupies a large share of the private day. The Swedish home study of 14 cats found a clear difference between the short and long absences. During the 4-hour condition, the average proportion of sample time spent lying down was 0.58. That means lying appeared during about 58% of the measured intervals. During the 30-minute condition, the average was 0.27, or about 27%. Normal variation around those averages was roughly 0.08 in the longer condition and 0.10 in the shorter one. The statistical result was reported at a probability value of 0.02. A value this low suggests that the difference was unlikely to have appeared through random variation alone within that study. The longer absence gave the cats enough time to move beyond the first adjustment after departure. A short period may contain more walking, listening, or checking the entrance, simply because the person has only recently left. Across 4 hours, ordinary resting has more opportunity to fill the recording. The increased lying therefore fits the normal structure of a cat's day. It does not provide evidence by itself that the cats became emotionally withdrawn. Resting is one of the main ways a cat organizes energy. Its body is designed for brief periods of powerful movement. Jumping onto furniture, sprinting across a room, or pouncing on an object uses muscles quickly. Longer low movement periods help balance those bursts. Researchers can now measure this pattern with devices small enough to be worn on a collar. In 2024, a project followed 28 privately owned cats inside their homes. The cats wore accelerometers, which are sensors that detect movement and changes in direction. A similar sensor inside a phone can tell when the screen has been turned or tilted. The researchers matched the movement signals with videos showing what each cat was actually doing. They then used machine learning to classify 8 broad categories of behavior. Machine learning means teaching a computer to recognize patterns from many labeled examples. The categories included lying, sitting, standing, general activity, eating, grooming, scratching, and litter use. Once trained, the system could estimate how cats divided their time without requiring a person to watch every second of footage. Even this technology has limits. A motionless cat may be awake and listening. It may be drifting through light drowsiness. The same posture could also continue into deeper sleep. A camera sees the body, while a movement sensor mainly records how little it changes position. Neither one can always identify the exact internal state from stillness alone. Small signs may offer clues. An ear can turn toward a distant sound. The eyelids may open briefly before closing again. Breathing often becomes slower as relaxation deepens. A paw that was tucked tightly may loosen against the fabric. Hours spent this way form the quiet center of many home alone days. The cat has already listened, eaten, groomed, and moved through familiar rooms. Now the visible activity has narrowed to breathing and the occasional change of position. Beneath that calm surface, the brain is preparing to pass through several different kinds of sleep. Breathing grows slower against the fabric. The head sinks until the chin rests more fully on the cushion. One ear gives a final turn toward the hallway, then relaxes. The paws loosen beneath the chest as the weight of the body settles. A cat can remain in quiet wakefulness for several minutes before sleep begins. Its eyes may be mostly closed while the ears continue following small sounds. A pipe behind the wall can still produce a response. So can a bird landing near the window. During this light resting state, the cat remains ready to lift its head or change position with little effort. As sleep deepens, the brain begins moving through a series of changing stages. Mammals divide sleep into two broad kinds, called non-REM sleep and REM sleep. The body cycles between them many times, rather than entering one unchanging state for the entire rest period. Early non-REM sleep begins as awareness of the room gradually fades. Brainwaves, which are patterns of electrical activity produced by groups of nerve cells, start to slow. Breathing usually becomes steadier. The muscles still hold some tone, meaning they remain slightly active, instead of becoming completely loose. A sound may wake the cat, though quieter noises are less likely to interrupt it than they were a few minutes earlier. Deeper non-REM sleep brings stronger slowing. The body uses this time for repair, energy balance, and other forms of maintenance shared across mammals. The cat may lie on its side now, exposing more of the body because the chosen resting place feels secure. Its ears move less often. The paws remain still, and the breathing becomes easy to follow from a distance. Early sleep researchers learned a great deal about these stages by studying cats. During the 20th century, recordings from the feline brain helped scientists describe the electrical changes that separate waking, non-REM sleep, and REM sleep. Cats became especially important in the study of REM sleep because their sleep periods contain clear changes in eye movement, muscle activity, and brain signals. Recordings from adult cats showed that the eyes can move slowly during non-REM sleep. These movements were usually less coordinated between the two eyes. REM sleep produced a different pattern. The eyes began making quicker movements beneath the closed lids, sometimes traveling together in the same direction. This is where the name comes from. REM means rapid eye movement. During REM sleep, parts of the brain become highly active even while the cat remains asleep. Much of the skeletal muscle system is strongly suppressed. Skeletal muscles are the muscles used for voluntary movement, such as walking, jumping, or lifting the head. This suppression helps keep the body mostly still, while the brain passes through an active sleep state. Small movements can still appear. A whisker may twitch. One ear can flick briefly. The toes may curl, or the skin around the mouth may shift. These motions often last only a second before the body becomes quiet again. They are sometimes described as signs that the cat is dreaming. The changing brain activity makes some form of dream experience possible, though the content remains beyond direct observation. A camera cannot show whether the sleeping cat is following a bird, hearing a remembered voice, or experiencing something with no clear match in waking life. The paw moving against the cushion does not provide a reliable translation. It shows that the sleeping nervous system is active. A period of REM sleep eventually gives way to non-REM sleep again, or ends with a brief awakening. The cat may open its eyes, change sides, and return to sleep within moments. These short awakenings can occur without fully restarting the day. Across a long afternoon, several cycles may pass while the furniture and sunlight appear almost unchanged. The hidden hours therefore contain movement even during their quietest portion. Electrical patterns rise and slow inside the brain. Muscle tone changes. Responsiveness to the room fades and returns. Later, the daily rhythm begins pushing the body toward greater wakefulness. Light shifts across the floor. Familiar outside sounds gather, and the cat's sleep becomes lighter as the household approaches a more active part of the day. The cat opens its eyes as the afternoon light reaches the far side of the room. Outside, school traffic has begun to thicken. A building door opens more often, and footsteps pass along the hallway at shorter intervals. These signals arrive together often enough to become part of the daily rhythm. Domestic cats commonly show strong activity around dawn and dusk. Scientists sometimes use the word crepuscular for animals that are especially active during these periods of changing light. A household cat can also shift much of its movement into daytime or nighttime hours. Food schedules, outdoor access, human routines, artificial lighting, and individual temperament all help shape the result. The cat's internal clock provides a basic cycle close to 24 hours. Regular events then adjust that cycle through a process called entrainment. Entrainment means that a biological rhythm becomes aligned with repeating signals in the environment. Sunrise can act as one signal. A feeder opening at the same hour can become another. The sound of a person beginning work or returning home may also join the pattern. In the 2019 study that tracked 14 indoor colony cats for a week, activity rose and fell at recognizable times. One morning, peak appeared around 5 to 6 o'clock, close to the period before sunrise and early care routines. Another increase occurred between roughly 9 and 11 in the morning. Movement then dropped during the middle of the day, especially from about noon until 3. Activity rose again between 4 and 6 in the afternoon. 12 of the 14 cats showed this tendency toward 2 main daily peaks. Researchers call that a bimodal rhythm. The word simply means that the day contains 2 stronger periods of movement. The first gathered around morning conditions. The second formed during the late afternoon or early evening. Those peaks came from a combination of feline biology and events created by people. Staff members arrived, refreshed food, cleaned areas, and moved through the colony. Light changed across the day. The cats adjusted to all of these repeated signals. A separate group study published in 2025 found a similar link between feline activity and human care. The cats showed 2 daily activity peaks that lined up with caretaker interventions. These included feeding, cleaning, and routine health checks. Across the full monitored day, the cats were active for an average of about 14.86% of the time. That equals a little more than 3.5 hours across 24 hours. Most of the day, therefore, remained low in movement. The active portion gathered into shorter periods around events that made movement useful. A cat living in a private home may follow a different clock while using the same basic process. An owner who wakes at 6 each morning creates one set of signals. A person working evening shifts creates another. Weekends may change the pattern when breakfast arrives later, and the rooms remain active through midday. Seasonal light can also move the timing. A winter afternoon darkens much earlier than the same room in June. Indoor lights and heating systems soften these seasonal changes, though they do not remove them completely. Repeated human habits can gradually become woven into the cat's schedule. A cat may sleep through much of a quiet workday and become active near the usual return period. It might leave the bed, visit the window, or walk toward the entrance. This does not require the cat to spend every sleeping hour thinking about the absent person. Its body may simply be reaching a time when wakefulness has often been followed by movement, food, speech, and social contact. The household has taught the cat when those things are most likely to become available. Some cats adjust strongly to this shared rhythm. Others follow daylight or feeding more closely. A cat with outdoor access may respond to birds and changing weather. An indoor cat in a busy apartment may organize much of its day around elevators, neighboring doors, and the owner's schedule. The afternoon cat now rises from the cushion and stretches one front leg across the floor. Its day has been partly shaped by an ancient biological clock and partly tuned by life beside people. That shared timing creates a broad pattern, while age, personality, living space, and experience determine how each cat fills it. The same afternoon rhythm can look completely different from one home to another. A young cat may wake and race down the hallway, slide across the floor, then leap onto a chair beside the window. An adult may divide the day between one lookout and one favorite bed. An older cat might change locations only a few times, choosing warmth and easy access over unnecessary movement. Age influences these patterns, though it never explains them alone. A healthy senior can remain playful. A cautious young cat may prefer long hours beneath a bed. Pain, hearing, vision, body weight, and past experience all affect how much energy appears on a camera. The home itself also shapes what the cat can do. An apartment may offer one main window and a short path between the kitchen and bedroom. A larger house can contain several floors, quieter rooms, and more places where the cat disappears from view. Controlled outdoor access adds weather, insects, soil, unfamiliar scents, and the movement of other animals. An indoor-only cat receives most of its daily change through people, windows, objects, and sounds passing beyond the walls. Researchers measured some of these differences in a 2024 study involving 28 privately owned cats. Each animal wore a small accelerometer inside its normal home. The sensor recorded movement, while video helped researchers identify what the cat was doing. The system grouped behavior into 8 broad categories, including lying, eating, grooming, and general activity. Results varied greatly between individual cats. Age influenced some patterns. Outdoor access changed the amount and type of movement that could occur. Season and household conditions also mattered. A warm summer day may lead one cat toward a cool floor. Cold weather can make a heated room or sunny window more attractive. Rain may keep an outdoor access cat inside, changing a day that would usually contain garden movement. Household structure adds another layer. A cat living alone has no other cat available for play, grooming, or avoidance. In a multi-cat home, two animals may chase each other after breakfast. Another pair may sleep in the same room while keeping several feet of space between them. Some cats share resting surfaces and exchange grooming. Others divide the home into preferred areas and meet only briefly near food or doorways. The number of animals cannot reveal the quality of those relationships. Adding another pet also does not automatically prevent difficulty during human absence. A new animal can create companionship when the match is good. It can also introduce competition over food, litter boxes, resting places, and access to people. Social behavior develops through more than the current household. Early handling can influence how comfortable a kitten becomes around humans. Inherited temperament plays a role as well. Some cats are naturally more cautious when faced with unfamiliar people or objects. Previous homes can leave strong habits. A cat that lived outdoors may continue checking windows and doors often. One raised in a quiet apartment may react strongly to sudden household change. Learning keeps modifying these tendencies across life. A shy cat can become more confident after months of predictable care. A social cat may withdraw after a stressful move, then gradually return to familiar routines. Sociability remains flexible because experience keeps shaping what the animal expects. This is why broad averages need careful use. The Swedish study showed that cats rested more during the longer absence. The finding describes a group pattern. One individual may have slept almost the entire time. Another could have moved between windows, food, and several resting places. Both can fit inside the same average. A useful picture of the hidden day therefore begins with the species, then narrows to the particular cat. Its age matters. The rooms matter too. History, health, access, and temperament combine into one private routine. That routine may look calm, active, social, or mostly solitary. Each version belongs to a real cat living inside a specific home. This wide variation makes the science harder. Researchers must decide where to place cameras, what movements to measure, and how to interpret the many minutes when the cat chooses a place nobody expected. A camera placed in the wrong room may record hours of empty carpet. The cat may have chosen a shelf, a closet, or a quiet corner behind furniture that the owner rarely sees. This creates a basic problem for researchers. To study a private day, they first have to find where the cat actually spends it. In the Swedish home separation study, 3 digital cameras were used in each home. One camera faced the entrance, so researchers could record the departure and reunion. The other 2 were placed in areas the owner believed the cat used most often. That plan worked well enough to capture many behaviors, though the cat still moved beyond the frame. Across 17.5 hours of observed footage, they were out of view for 29.2% of the recorded time. Almost 1 minute in every 3 contained a cat somewhere. The cameras could not see. An owner might expect the favorite chair to be used all afternoon. Once the house becomes quiet, the cat may choose the spare bed, the floor beneath a table, or a patch of sunlight that lasts only 20 minutes. Private routines can remain partly hidden even from the person who shares the home. Researchers also need a consistent way to describe whatever the cameras capture. For this, they create an ethogram. An ethogram is a defined catalogue of behaviors, with clear rules for deciding what each action should be called. Lying, sitting, standing, grooming, rubbing, vocalizing, and looking toward the door can each receive a specific definition. Without those definitions, two observers might watch the same clip and score it differently. One person could describe a cat as resting. Another might call the same posture alert watching. A shared system reduces that kind of disagreement. In the Swedish study, longer behaviors such as lying and sitting were checked at 5-second intervals. Every 5 seconds, the observer recorded what the cat was doing at that moment. Shorter actions were also studied within 5-second sampling blocks. Lip licking was counted continuously because it could happen too quickly to be captured reliably at fixed intervals. These choices create a workable record from hours of footage. They also simplify a flowing animal into separate categories. A cat can listen while lying down. It may look toward a sound while grooming. One behavior label cannot always contain everything happening in the body at once. Wearable sensors solve part of the coverage problem. An accelerometer detects movement and changes in direction. Placed on a collar, it can travel with the cat into rooms where no camera is pointing. In 2024, researchers used accelerometer recordings and video from 28 privately owned cats to train a computer system. The system learned to sort movement patterns into 8 broad categories. These included general activity, eating, grooming, litter use, lying, scratching, sitting, and standing. Machine learning made it possible to process far more movement data than a person could watch frame by frame. The sensor could detect that the cat had risen, walked, and settled again. It could not always show why. A sudden burst of activity might come from a toy rolling across the floor, a bird appearing outside, or a noise near the door. The movement signal may look similar even when the cause is completely different. Location tracking adds another layer. In the 2019 colony study, ultra-wideband tags sent brief radio signals that allowed researchers to estimate each cat's 3-dimensional position every 0.9 seconds. Accuracy was about 15 centimeters. That was precise enough to show whether a cat approached a feeder, crossed a room, or rested in a particular area. A week of tracking could reveal daily peaks that would be difficult to notice from occasional observation. Even such detailed location data leaves part of the story outside the measurement. A tag can show that a cat remained beside a window for 6 minutes. It cannot reveal whether the cat watched a sparrow, another cat, or a moving branch. A camera can provide that context, though only within its frame. Each tool therefore captures a different piece of the hidden day. Cameras preserve the room and the objects within it. Wearable sensors follow the body through unseen spaces. Location systems measure paths with great precision. The inner reason for a movement still has to be inferred carefully from the full pattern. Researchers can measure how long a cat rested, where it walked, and how often it approached the entrance. The larger meaning depends on more than movement alone. To understand what the absent person represents, scientists must watch how the cat behaves during separation, exploration, and reunion. The measurements can show where a cat walked and how long it rested. They can also record the moment when a familiar person leaves the room and later returns. Meaning appears through the pattern across those moments. Cats can distinguish an owner from a stranger through voice and odor. Familiarity is therefore measurable. Researchers have also tried to learn whether the familiar person changes how safely a cat explores an uncertain place. Attachment scientists sometimes use the term secure base. A secure base is a trusted individual whose presence can help an animal settle, investigate its surroundings, and recover after a short separation. The strongest evidence comes from a sequence of behaviors. Researchers watch what happens while the caregiver is present, how the animal responds after the person leaves, and what changes during reunion. A single purr cannot establish attachment. One approach toward the door also leaves several possible explanations. The whole sequence matters. In 2015, researchers tested cats with a modified version of the strange situation. This procedure was first developed for studying bonds between human infants and caregivers. The cat entered an unfamiliar room with its owner. A stranger also appeared during the parts of the test. The owner left and returned according to a set schedule, while researchers recorded vocal sounds, movement, contact, and exploration. The cats behaved differently toward their owners and the strangers. They therefore recognized the social difference between the two people. Under the researchers' criteria, the results provided weak evidence for the owner acting as a classic secure base. The unfamiliar test room may have affected the cat strongly. A cautious animal might remain still because of the building, smells, or strange equipment around it. That response can make attachment harder to separate from general discomfort. A later study published in 2019 used a secure base test with kittens and adult cats. 70 kittens produced behavior clear enough to classify. Among them, 64.3% were placed in the securely attached group. 38 adult cats were also classified, and 65.8% received the secure label. Those proportions are close to 2 cats out of every 3 in the tested groups. Securely categorized cats often greeted the caregiver after reunion and then returned to exploring the room. Contact helped settle the animal, after which attention widened back toward the environment. Cats categorized as insecure showed different patterns. Some maintained unusually strong contact or showed difficulty settling. Others avoided the caregiver more than expected during reunion. The researchers also examined whether structured social experience would alter the kitten results. Some kittens completed 6 weeks of socialization training. The secure and insecure proportions did not change significantly after that period. This suggested that the measured pattern was more stable than a brief training program could easily reshape, although experience across a cat's whole life still matters. Different studies have reached different conclusions because the methods are demanding. Room size can affect exploration. Outdoor cats may respond differently from cats raised entirely indoors. Definitions also matter, since researchers must decide how much contact, avoidance, or movement qualifies for each category. A 2025 study brought the testing closer to the cat's normal living conditions. Researchers examined 82 cat caregiver pairs from private homes and shelters. They used a standardized 5-phase procedure, meaning that each pair experienced the same ordered series of presence, separation, and reunion. Testing across homes and shelters helped researchers examine how living environment might shape attachment behavior. This work reflects a broader effort to study cats in settings that fit their daily lives more closely. Other experiments show that human company itself can hold value. In one preference study, cats were offered choices from several categories, including food and interaction with a person. Human social interaction was the most preferred category for the largest share of the cats. Food came next overall. Individual choices still varied widely. Some cats strongly preferred contact. Others focused on food or objects. These results support a careful picture of the cat-human bond. For many cats, a familiar person becomes an important part of safety and daily social life. The bond may appear through a brief greeting followed by relaxed independence. A cat can seek contact, settle, and then walk away toward the window. That balance can itself be part of secure behavior. An owner's absence therefore matters differently across individuals. Most cats move through ordinary periods alone without obvious trouble. A smaller group shows repeated changes that suggest separation has become harder to manage. A cat sleeping through part of the afternoon is usually following a normal pattern. Grooming after a meal, watching birds through glass, and moving between resting places also belong to an ordinary feline day. These behaviors can appear on a camera for hours without pointing to distress. Concern grows when a clear change happens repeatedly during the caregiver's absence and settles when that person returns. Researchers often use the term separation-related problems for this pattern. The phrase describes behaviors linked with separation, while leaving room for several possible causes. One overturned object or a single loud meow provides very little information. A useful pattern has to be seen across more than one absence. Timing matters. Frequency matters as well. The cat's health and the wider household situation also need to be considered. A questionnaire study published in 2020 offered an early estimate of how often these problems might occur. Researchers collected information from 130 owners about 223 cats. 30 cats met at least one of the study's proposed conditions for a possible separation-related problem. That represented 13.45% of the cats in the sample. Within those 30 possible cases, destructive behavior was reported in 20 cats. Excessive vocalization appeared in 19. Inappropriate urination was reported in 18, meaning urine was left outside the usual litter area. 16 cats showed behavior described by owners as depression-like inactivity. Aggression appeared in 11 cats. The same number were reported to show agitation or anxiety. 7 cats defecated outside the expected place. These figures describe reports from owners rather than diagnoses made after full veterinary examinations. That difference is important. A scratched sofa may reflect normal claw care, an unsuitable scratching surface, or a territorial response to change. Urination outside the litter box can be connected with urinary pain, kidney disease, litter preference, conflict with another cat, or difficulty reaching the box. Reduced activity may come from arthritis, illness, heat, age, or an ordinary period of sleep. The behavior has to be connected carefully with the absence before separation becomes the strongest explanation. The 2020 questionnaire was designed as a starting point for further research. It could identify patterns worth studying, though it could not confirm a final diagnosis for each cat. Owner memories can also be incomplete. Many people never see what happens during the hours after they leave. A chewed object or wet patch is discovered later, with no direct view of when it happened. Home cameras can help reveal timing, yet even video may miss the cat when it moves outside the frame. The study found 2 household features associated with possible separation-related problems. Cats without access to toys appeared more often in the reported group. Cats living without another animal also appeared more often. Both associations reached a probability value of 0.04. That result suggests a pattern within the sample. It does not show that buying toys will solve every case. Bringing home another animal can create new stress when space, temperament, or introductions are poorly matched. Associations point researchers toward ideas that deserve testing. They do not prove a single cause. A veterinarian can help when a change is sudden, repeated, or concerning. Medical problems need to be ruled out before a behavior is treated as purely emotional. The clearest evidence usually comes from several sources placed together: a health check, the timing of the behavior, video from absences, and the cat's response when the caregiver returns. For most cats, the quiet day continues without signs of a serious problem. The animal sleeps, rises to drink, and spends a few minutes near the window. A toy may be pushed beneath a chair. Later, the cat settles in another room as sunlight moves away from the floor. These ordinary changes fit the flexible rhythm already established by the home. Toward late afternoon, the outside world begins to shift. Traffic becomes heavier. Doors open more often along the street or hallway. Familiar footsteps, vehicles, and building sounds begin gathering near the usual time of return. The cat may remain asleep until one of those signals becomes clear. It may also rise earlier, guided by the daily pattern that has formed through months or years of repetition. The absence is approaching its end, and the first hints arrive before the key reaches the lock. Late afternoon settles over the rooms in small changes. The bright patch on the floor reaches the leg of a chair and begins to fade. Cars pass more often outside. A neighbor returns, pauses near another door, and carries bags down the hallway. The cat lifts its head at one sound, then lowers it again when the footsteps continue past. Return may be predicted through several weak signals arriving together. The light has reached a familiar angle. The building has entered its busier period. Hunger may be rising near the time when an evening meal is usually served. None of these clues needs to provide a complete answer. Together, they can make the owner's arrival more likely than it was earlier in the day. A cat that often wakes before the person comes home may be responding to this collection of cues. A certain vehicle engine can become familiar after hundreds of arrivals. Its sound may enter through a window before the car is visible. In an apartment building, the elevator may stop on the correct floor. The vibration of the doors can travel through the walls. A gate may close outside, followed by footsteps with a pace the cat has heard many times. The day's timing adds a background expectation to those direct sounds. This kind of anticipation works through probability. Past experience teaches the brain that particular events often occur close together. Late-day traffic may be followed by the owner's car. The elevator may be followed by footsteps. The footsteps may be followed by a key touching the lock. When part of that chain appears, the cat can prepare for what often comes afterward. Some cats move toward the entrance, Others remain in a resting place and turn both ears toward the sound. A cat asleep in another room may show no response until the signal becomes louder and more certain. The familiar person can first return as an unseen location. Research on feline spatial hearing suggests that cats connect a known voice with the place where it seems to come from. A voice heard in the corridor can therefore place the owner outside the door before the person enters. The cat may turn toward that point in space. Its head rises, the ears face forward, and the body waits for the sound to continue. Footsteps can provide similar location information even without speech. Each step changes in loudness as the person approaches. A sound that was distant becomes clearer through the door. The cat's brain can compare the timing and strength of the noise at both ears, helping it estimate direction. The idea that cats know the exact return time remains difficult to prove. The Swedish home separation study examined behavior shortly before owners came back. Researchers divided the late period into two parts. The first covered the time from 10 minutes before the reunion until 5 minutes before it. The second covered the final 5 minutes, when an approaching person's footsteps, vehicle, or movement near the entrance might have become detectable. The cat showed no significant difference between the 30-minute and 4-hour conditions during either late interval. Their behavior before the long absence ended did not clearly separate itself from behavior before the short one ended. This result provides no evidence that the cats measured the exact length of time or knew the scheduled moment of return. It also leaves room for ordinary anticipation. A cat may become generally more active during the late afternoon. Direct recognition may begin only when a familiar sound enters the immediate environment. The biological rhythm and the approaching person can influence behavior during the same few minutes. The cat beside the window hears a vehicle slow outside. Another door opens first, and the body relaxes. A little later, the elevator stops again. This time, footsteps move toward the correct entrance. The cat leaves the cushion and crosses part of the room. In another home, a cat remains curled on the bed until metal touches metal on the other side of the door. The signals have become increasingly specific. Light and routine created an expectation. Footsteps place someone nearby. The key now enters the lock, removing the final uncertainty and opening the reunion that the quiet hours have been moving toward. The lock turns, and the door opens into the quiet hallway. Cool outdoor air enters with the person. Clothing carries faint traces of pavement, rain, car upholstery, or whatever places the day has passed through. A familiar voice crosses the room before the door has fully closed. The cat chooses its own response. It may approach with the tail raised, remain seated and watch, stretch beside the entrance, or walk forward only after the person speaks again. Some cats rub against a leg. Others give a short call or begin to purr from several feet away. A cat waking from deep rest may simply blink, shift position, and take another moment before moving. The reunion can be clear without becoming dramatic. The Swedish home study of 14 cats found its most interesting differences after the owners returned. Following the 4-hour absence, the cats purred more than they did after the 30-minute absence. The statistical value for that difference was 0.03. This means that Within the study, the result had about a 3% chance of appearing through random variation if the length of separation had no real effect. The cats also stretched more after the longer absence. That difference had a probability value of 0.04. Owners spoke to their cats more after being gone for 4 hours, with the same value of 0.04. The human side of the reunion had changed along with the feline side. Food still had to be considered. A cat may connect the returning person with dinner, access to another room, or a familiar evening routine. The researchers therefore repeated part of the analysis after removing 3 cats whose feeding schedules might complicate the result. That left 11 cats. Purring still increased after the longer separation, again with a probability value of 0.03. Stretching remained close to the usual statistical threshold, reaching 0.05. This made purring the stronger result. Stretching could have formed part of the greeting. It could also have followed a longer period spent lying down. Both explanations fit the visible behavior. Purring requires the same kind of care. Cats purr during friendly contact, quiet rest, nursing, discomfort, and several other situations. The sound cannot be translated into one fixed emotion. Its increase after the longer absence still shows that the reunion changed. The cats did not simply perform the exact same sequence after half an hour and 4 hours. The researchers also checked whether the owner's extra talking had directly produced the cat's purring or stretching. Those behaviors did not rise in a clear one-to-one pattern with the amount of speech. This supports the idea that the cat's responses had some independence from the owner's reactions. Physical contact offered another useful limit. The cats did not initiate significantly more bodily contact after the longer absence. They did not all rush forward, climb onto the person, or remain pressed against them. Feline social behavior often stays measured. A brief approach followed by a stretch can carry information. So can a purr heard from the nearby chair. The longer absence appeared most clearly after it had ended. During the hidden hours, the cat had followed the ordinary structure of its day. Departure cues had prepared it for the change. Quieter rooms revealed sounds that human activity usually covered. The unseen person remained part of a mental map and left familiar odor across bedding, furniture, and clothing. The cat moved through its own scent-marked routes, watched outdoor motion through glass, and redirected short hunting bursts toward reachable objects. Food divided the day into smaller visits. Grooming maintained the coat before the body settled into long periods of rest. Sleep carried the brain through non-REM sleep and REM sleep, while the household clock continued moving toward late afternoon. None of those behaviors alone proves that the cat spent the day longing for the person. Together, they show that absence happens inside a world still shaped by that person. The rooms carry their scent. Repeated routines help organize when the cat eats, sleeps, and becomes active. Familiar sounds regain meaning as the person approaches the door. Most cats probably spend much of an ordinary absence, resting and following well-established habits. Their private hours may look calm, practical, and largely self-directed. The person still remains part of the sensory landscape, the daily schedule, and the cat's social life. A longer separation may leave its clearest trace in the small change that follows reunion. The cat near the doorway finishes its stretch. A quiet purr begins as the person sets down the keys. Then the cat follows them into the room, or watches for a moment before returning to the warm place on the chair. The home has become shared again, and its familiar evening rhythm gently resumes.